So our final speaker for our panel today is currently a project manager for Our Voices. She actually has quite the storytelling background. Both her parents are teachers turned documentary filmmakers, and she herself is currently filming a documentary capturing the dropout rates of Indigenous communities in Canada. She's amazing, her story is amazing. Please, everyone, give a really warm welcome for Angela.
What's ye? Angela Code Husie, Sayisi Dene Tadoule Lake Hotsi, Whitehorse, Yukon Nasted, Sinia Si Masinistan. My name is Angela Code, and I am a member of the Sayisi Dene First Nation. I'm originally from a small community called Tadoule Lake, Manitoba, and it's in the far north of Canada. I was born in Churchill, Manitoba, which is known as the polar bear capital of the world. So it's quite cold. I currently live in Whitehorse, Yukon, which is next to Alaska, for those of you who may not be familiar with Canadian geography. And yeah, I work for a company, an organization called Our Voices. And what Our Voices works towards is the empowerment of Indigenous youth. And we do that through efforts in revitalizing Indigenous languages and cultures and land-based education. And I realized that in meeting all these wonderful people here, and part of the Emerging Leaders Fellowship, is that many people around the world do not know about Indigenous issues within Canada. And many people, even within Canada, don't know about Indigenous issues. And so in telling my story about who I am, maybe it'll give you a little insight as to why we at Our Voices do the work that we do. And so I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Tadoule Lake is a very small community, and its original name is Tadoule Lake, and that means floating ashes on the water. And Tadoule is a fly-in only community. And it's very expensive to get there. It's very expensive to live. There's not a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables, and yeah, there's not enough opportunities for the people there. And that's part of the reason why my parents chose to leave the reserve to move to Whitehorse, Yukon, so that my brother Mike and I might get a better opportunity to receive a good education and recreation opportunities, just like all other Canadians, because that's not available on most reserves in Canada. Again, maybe many of you don't know, like, Canada is a first world country, but there are people who live in third world conditions there. And I grew up without running water, and we used to take a dog team to go to school. And I never thought that I was poor growing up, because everybody else in the community lived just the way that I did. And we didn't have a lot of fancy things or whatever, but we always had food, and we always had good clothes, and we had love in our family and our community. And I grew up hunting and fishing on our land, and that's very important to me as an Indigenous person. And you'll find the more that you learn about Indigenous peoples, we have a very strong connection to our territory. And you know, just last year, Canada celebrated 150 years of being a country, but I'm here to tell you that it's much older than that. Our people have lived on our territory for thousands of years, and the caribou have sustained our people for thousands of years. And we hold them with the utmost respect. And today, we have to fight in order to protect things like caribou and fresh water. And we have to work to revitalize our languages, our values, our cultures, because Canada has systemically oppressed us. And it's continuing to this day. And if you learn anything about Canada, I urge you to learn more about the Indian Act and Indian residential schools and how that's impacted our communities today. Because today, many of our people are suffering. There's many socioeconomic crises, and many people are living in poverty. And that needs to change, and that's what Our Voices is working towards. And for myself, when I was 13 years old, I shot my first caribou. And my parents were so proud of me. They told so many people, oh, like, did you hear Angela shot her first caribou? And I was so embarrassed because I was like, do you have to tell them it was my first caribou? Because I have 2 older brothers, and you know they shot their first caribou when they were 9 or 10. And so, anyways, it took a few years until I realized that it's not actually that common to shoot your first caribou at 13, let alone a girl. And so now that's a source of pride for me. And I'll just tell you a quick story about what hunting means to me that I think is a huge misconception, particularly in Europe, and why hunting cultures are important. So I'm not a religious person. I'm not Christian, I'm not Jewish, I'm not Muslim, and but I have spirituality. And a lot of that comes from hunting. You learn a lot about life and death. And when I was 13, I remember we were hiking out in the mountains, and we were looking down in this valley, and we saw the herd of caribou. And I chose the one that I wanted to kill. And it was a young, fat bull. And I knew it would be tasty. And so I lined up, and my dad told me, he's like, okay, Ange, like, you know, do the kill shot, breathe, let half your breath out, hold it, and shoot. And it seemed like, you know, as Aaron was talking about time, it seemed like time had slowed down in those moments. And in those moments, you see an animal that's alive and well, and in an instant, it's gone. You drop it, and you did that. It's your responsibility, your action that caused that. And as we walked up to that caribou, I could see that it was still alive, and you can't start cutting it up because it might kick you or something. And so in watching that caribou, and you could see the life of it leave its eyes, it's almost as if watching its spirit leave its body. And in that moment, I was incredibly grateful for that caribou, for the skills that I had, for my father, for my ancestors. And it was an incredibly humbling experience. And you know, I think that's what you know, religion is about, is to be grateful for your life. And you know, so in watching that, I learned a big lesson. And I think that despite all the hardships that our people go through, it's important to remain grateful. And one of the sayings that my mom has always told me was, Sikezi sahe athlu nathiris nadli masinestan. And that means the sun is up over me, I wake up again, and I'm grateful. And it's very simple, but it's, I think that it's something to keep in mind in this line of work that we do in social entrepreneurship and trying to make the world a better place. The problems can be overwhelming sometimes, but it's important to take those moments to be grateful. And I'm very grateful to be here today amongst all of you. And thank you to the Skoll for having me. And I'm really grateful for our voices, for the work that we do as an organization, because we are working towards making sure that Indigenous people, young Indigenous people, are strong. And I think that it's important work, and I think that all the work that you guys do is very important as well. So thank you very much.